Super team paradox. The idea of throwing a bunch of stars on one roster sounds amazing, right? But when teams actually try it, it falls apart faster than the speed of light. The math just doesn't work. Teams dump 60 to 80% of their salary cap into 3 players, and then suddenly they're trying to win playoff series with a bench that looks like it was built out of clearance rack contract. The max deals for these stars hit somewhere between 40 to 50 million each, which means the teams stuck filling the rest of the roster with guys making rookie wages or digging into the veteran minimum bin. That doesn't usually end well. The chemistry part is brutal too. When 3 high usage players are fighting over possessions, shots, and ball time, things get ugly. The top 3 players on some of these teams have combined usage rates over 70%. That means the rest of the roster is standing around like extras in a movie they thought they were starring in. And when that happens, turnovers go up, assist numbers drop, and the whole flow just dies. The league average for turnover is 13.7%, but these super teams are often north of 14.5. The assist to turnover ratio gets crushed too, usually stuck around 1.5, which is far from the efficient machine you'd expect with that much talent. Then there's the bench. Oh man, the benches. Super teams average a bench net rating of negative 5.1. That's not just bad, that's playoff losing bad. A net rating that low means the moment the starters sit, the whole operation collapses. Bench players on these teams average a win shares per 48 of 0.08, below the league norm. That small difference matters when you're trying to close out a 7-game series and your bench is giving up leads every time they hit the floor. Look at what happened with the 2012 to 2013 Lakers. Kobe, Dwight, Nash, and Powell took up nearly 80% of the cap. That left them with a bench that could barely keep up in practice. Their turnover percentages hit 15.1. Assist to turnover ratio plummeted to 1.5, and the whole thing ended in a first-round sweep. Even though their stars posted nearly 27 win shares combined, the roster imbalance just crushed them. Then you've got the 2021 to 2022 Nets. Durant, Irving, and Harden were gobbling up over 78% of the cap. They had 3 guys who loved isolation plays and barely passed. The team finished 28th in passes per game. That's not chemistry. That's just 3 solo albums playing at once. Their turnover percentage, 15.4. Assist to turnover ratio, just 1.6. Once again, swept in the first round. Starting lineup had a top 10 net rating, but throw the bench in and it dropped off a cliff. Negative 9.1 net rating from the bench. That's historically bad. Even across the board, it's not just bad luck. The numbers repeat. Super teams' benches regularly underperform. And chemistry, same story. Teams with poor assist to turnover ratios win way fewer championships. Since 2010, only 3 super teams have pulled it off. Meanwhile, the teams that win, like the 2019 Raptors or the 2021 Bucks, spend less on stars and more on depth. That's no coincidence. So yeah, stars are fun, but if the rest of the squad is struggling just to stay afloat, that super team dream turns into a postseason disaster. MVP paradox. The league calls it the most valuable player, but what they really mean is the most votable player. Time and time again, the guy who actually gives his team the most value ends up watching someone else hoist the trophy. Why? Because voters love drama, big scoring nights, and teams that finish with shiny records. Meanwhile, the actual value, measured by stats like win shares, value over replacement player, and box plus minus, gets ignored if it doesn't come with a compelling backstory or at least 55 wins. The 2023 vote might have been the clearest case. Embiid finally got his MVP, but Nikola Jokic had the better numbers across almost every advanced category: higher win shares, higher box plus minus, better value over replacement, and elite efficiency. Not to mention, Denver was way worse when he sat. Voter fatigue played a huge part. People just didn't want to give Jokic 3 in a row. So even though he led the 3rd-ranked offense and went on to win the championship, the award went elsewhere. Derrick Rose won the award in 2011, but Dwight Howard and LeBron James had stronger advanced numbers across the board. Howard led in player efficiency rating and defensive win share, while dragging a weaker roster to the playoffs. LeBron had the best win shares and box plus minus, but apparently voters preferred a feel-good story over the guy with actual elite 2-way impact. Rose was flashy and exciting, but the Bulls were 4-3 without him. That's not irreplaceable. Meanwhile, the Magic went 2-5 without Howard, and LeBron's Heat dropped significantly without him on the floor. Then there's the 2017 mess. Russell Westbrook's triple-double season was historic, sure, but was it more valuable than what James Harden and Kawhi Leonard did? Harden led the #1 offense, dished more assists, and was more efficient. Leonard was the best two-way player in the league and anchored the second-best defense. But Westbrook's narrative, carrying the Thunder after Durant left, was too tempting for voters. Never mind that his team finished 6th or that he shot 42%. His box plus-minus was sky high, but so were Harden's and Leonard's, and they played for better teams with stronger net ratings. The 2019 season gave us another great example. Giannis had the best team in two-way stats, but Harden was doing things no one had done since the 1980s. He dropped over 36 points a night and carried the highest usage rate in the league while leading in win shares and value over replacement player. His efficiency, better than people gave him credit for. The Rockets were below average without him, but Giannis had the more balanced team, the cleaner story, and the media was ready to hand it over. And I'm not saying who should have won, but I'm just giving you the arguments many people use. Since 2010, the player who leads the league in win shares has only won MVP 6 times. The value over replacement player leader has won even less. And when it comes to raw scoring, MVP winners have averaged 28 points per game, while win shares leaders averaged around 25. The message is clear: score big and make headline, and you might win. Carry your team quietly, good luck. Even players with worse supporting casts often get overlooked because they don't hit the magical win total or play on national TV every other night. It's not the most valuable player, it's the most marketable one. Best player on worst team paradox. It's a tale as old as Twitter. Bad team, great player, and somehow it's the star that takes the hit. The guy dragging the whole squad up by the shoelaces becomes the scapegoat when the season tanks. It happens constantly. These players carry massive offensive loads, post elite stats, and still get blamed for everything from missed playoffs to the coach getting fired. The truth, the roster around them is usually a mess. Kevin Love in 2013 missed most of the year with a busted hand, but still led the Timberwolves in win shares. He grabbed 14 rebounds a night and posted a top 15 player efficiency rating. The team without him barely functioned, with a net rating almost 7 points worse when he sat, but media chatter focused on his 35% shooting and labeled him not a winner. The rest of the team ranked bottom 10 in both offense and defense, with guys like Ricky Rubio shooting 29% from deep. Then you had DeMarcus Cousins in 2016. He put up nearly 27 points and 12 boards while anchoring both ends of the floor. He had one of the league's highest usage rates and still managed a top 10 value over replacement. His team, bottom 5 in defense, bottom 5 in ball movement, and rotating coaches, like it was a hobby. But the headlines stuck to his technical fouls and turnovers, ignoring the fact that when he sat, the Kings collapsed. Bradley Beal's 2019 season was more of the same. He played every single game, dropped 26 a night, dished 5.5 assists, and somehow became the punching bag for the Wizards, finishing near the basement. The real story? Washington's defense was 29th. John Wall was injured most of the year, and the team had the worst teammate win shares total in the league. Yet people called Beal empty stats and questioned his contract. Trae Young in 2022 led the league in total points and assists. His true shooting was nearly 60%, and he had a top 5 box plus minus. His usage rate was massive, sure, but the offense only worked when he was on the court. His net rating swung almost 10 points when he sat. But what did people focus on? Turnovers, defense, and some vague narrative about not being a leader. The Hawks' 25th ranked defense and weak bench somehow didn't make the conversation. Across the board, stars on bottom teams post solid numbers. Since 2010, these players average over 8 win shares and a player efficiency rating of 23. That's top 20 league-wide. Yet the team record buries them, and narratives take over. Media loves pointing to turnovers and field goal percentage, even though these guys are taking the toughest shots and carrying the offense. The average usage rate, over 31%. Teammates, usually contributing 21 win shares combined, far below playoff teams. The on-off splits tell the story. With these stars, teams are significantly better. Without them, they fall apart. But instead of context, fans get fed highlight clips and lazy takes. The result, trade rumors, contract criticism, and endless debates over whether they make players better. Funny thing is, teams without these guys almost never win. But sure, let's blame the one person keeping the lights on. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to start posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Elite Defenders Paradox. Defense is literally half the game. But judging by the way award voters and highlight reels act, you'd think it was just a fun side quest. Elite defenders carry entire systems, erase opposing stars, and drag their teams up the standing. But they rarely get the same love as guys jacking up 30 shots a night. It's not because they're invisible, it's because defense somehow still doesn't count. unless you're also scoring 25 points a game. Tony Allen, in 2014, was one of the most disruptive perimeter defenders in the league. He guarded 3 positions, hounded All-Stars into bad shots, and helped the Grizzlies post a top 5 defense. But with just 9 points a game, no All-Star nod, no MVP buzz, barely a mention compared to his teammate Zach Randolph, who scored 17. Allen's on-off defensive rating swing was over 3 points, basically elite, but all people wanted to talk about was his shooting percentage. Draymond Green in 2017 anchored the Warriors' #1 ranked defense. He was everywhere, guarding point guards, switching onto bigs, blocking shots, and grabbing steals. His versatility rating, 88%. That's like being fluent in 5 languages, while your teammates know how to order lunch in 1. And yet, despite winning Defensive Player of the Year, he finished 7th in MVP voting, while his teammates Steph Curry and Kevin Durant hogged the spotlight with scoring averages and flashy plays. Rudy Gobert has lived in this paradox for years. In 2020, he put up absurd rim protection numbers, held opponents to 45% at the basket, and posted over 5 defensive win share. He practically defined the Jazz's entire defensive identity, but because he's not putting up threes or crossing anyone up, his MVP votes 10th place. His teammate Donovan Mitchell got more buzz despite having less impact by far. Marcus Smart was the heart of the Celtics' second-ranked defense in 2023. He won Defensive Player of the Year the season before, led guards in steals, and held Trae Young to 39% shooting in the playoffs. His presence shifted Boston's defensive rating by over 3 points. But again, no All-Star appearance, no MVP traction. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown got the headlines because they scored more, even though Smart was doing the dirty work every night. This isn't just anecdotal. Since 2010, the top 10 players in defensive win shares averaged just 1.8 All-Star selections each. Meanwhile, offensive stars putting up 25-plus points get nearly 5. MVP voters have given 62% of their votes to players scoring over 30 a game, even though those players rarely lead in defensive box plus minus or opponent field goal percentage. Defensive metric, like defensive win shares and defensive rating, tell the real story. Elite defenders are swinging team ratings by 3 or 4 points regularly. They're holding all NBA scores under their season averages, contesting every possession, and playing across 3 or more positions. And yet, unless they also score 15 to 20 a night, they barely exist in the awards conversation. Every season, we hear how defense wins championships. But when it comes time to hand out recognition, the guys making the actual stops get stopped short. The game might be 2 halves, but the praise, it's stuck on one side: pace, an efficiency paradox. It sounds great in theory. More possessions should mean more chances to score, but in practice, pushing the pace usually pushes teams straight down the efficiency charts. It's one of the NBA's great statistical traps. Going faster leads to more mistakes, worse shots, and gassed defenders. And even though the scoreboard moves faster, the offense doesn't actually get better. Take the 2015 Sixers. They played at the 3rd fastest pace in the league, but they had the worst offense by far. Their offensive rating was 10 points lower than the league average. Their turnover percentage, a brutal 17.1, dead last. And most of those came in transition, which is supposed to be the easy part. Michael Carter-Williams and Tony Wroten were running wild. Unfortunately, they were also handing the ball to the other team nearly 4 times a game each. They took way too many mid-range shots, and their shooting percentages were some of the worst in the league. Fast pace, slow progress. The 2018 Suns did the same thing. They had the 2nd highest pace and the worst offense in the league. Their turnover numbers were ugly, with more than half coming in transition. Devin Booker had to do everything, and while he scored a lot, the team still fell apart. They shot too many contested jumpers early in the shot clock and didn't get to the rim enough. The result? High tempo, low results. Their transition offense wasn't even good, ranking near the bottom despite using it more than almost every other team. Then there was the 2021 Wizards. They led the league in pace, but still finished with a bottom 3rd offense. They got 5.5 extra possessions a game, but they couldn't do much with them. Russell Westbrook turned the ball over constantly, and a lot of it happened during transition attempts. They chucked up threes at a decent clip, but their percentages were mediocre, and defensively, forget about it. That up-tempo style left them constantly exposed, and their defensive rating took a hit every time they tried to outrun their problems. San Antonio tried to follow the fast-paced model in 2024, but again, same outcome. 6th in pace, 25th in offensive efficiency. They had a top 5 rate of 3-point attempts, but ranked 23rd in percentage. And with a turnover percentage of nearly 15, they couldn't capitalize on their transition volume. Wemby showed promise, but even his high usage couldn't save a team that was sprinting toward inefficiency. The faster they played, the worse it got on both ends. Statistically, it's all over the place. Teams in the top 10 in pace averaged a turnover rate over 15%, way worse than the league's 13. That turnover spike alone cost them about 1.2 points per 100 possessions. Their shot profile skewed toward lower value looks, too many mid-range jumpers, and early threes with bad spacing. Even in transition, where they're supposed to thrive, most of them scored less than 1.12 points per play. That's barely above half-court efficiency. And defensively, higher pace means more transition for your opponent too. These teams gave up nearly 15 fast break points a night, and their defensive ratings were about 2 points higher than league average. So not only were they not efficient on offense, they were actively hurting themselves on defense. There's the occasional exception like the 2017 Warriors, but they had Curry, Durant, and a defense led by Draymond. Most teams don't have that luxury. For everyone else, trying to run before they can walk just leads to turnovers, bad shots, and a lot of fast-paced losing. Tanking. Paradox. Here's the NBA's favorite gamble. Lose on purpose. Draft a superstar and ride off into playoff relevance. Only more often than not, it turns into a long, awkward journey through irrelevance, capped off with the guy who barely cracks the starting lineup. Teams bottom out, trade their veterans, give 30 minutes a night to G League projects, and pray the ping pong balls deliver. When they do, they usually draft someone who's out of the league in 5 years. The 2014 Bucks went full tank, just 15 wins and a league-worst net rating of -9.8. They traded away solid players, leaned heavily on youth, and cleared the way for a high pick. That pick, Jabari Parker. He was supposed to be a future All-Star, maybe the next Carmelo Anthony. Instead, he tore his ACL twice, posted below-average advanced stats, and never made an All-Star team. Milwaukee made the playoffs 4 years later, but it was Giannis, not Jabari, who dragged them there. Philadelphia's 2016 season was even worse. They won 10 games, put up the league's worst net rating, and threw over 40% of their minutes to rookies and fringe players. Their reward was Jahlil Okafor. He scored a bit, but couldn't defend, didn't fit with Joel Embiid, and was traded by year 3. His value over replacement was negative, and he was out of the league not long after. The Sixers didn't get good until Simmons and Embiid took over, both drafted in different years. The 2019 Cavaliers, same story. They cratered after LeBron left, shipped out veterans like Kyle Korver and George Hill, and leaned on a bunch of kids. Colin Sexton put up solid counting stats, but his win shares and value over replacement lagged behind expectations for a top 10 pick. He struggled defensively, never became a franchise cornerstone, and was eventually traded. Cleveland made the playoffs again, but only after bringing in Donovan Mitchell. Even when teams land the number 1 pick, the risk doesn't vanish. Over 40% of top 5 picks since 2010 haven't even cracked 20 win shares by year 5. Most don't make all-star teams. Tanking teams average fewer than 20 wins per season, but only 38% of their prize picks become stars. The rest, injuries, bad fit, or simply overhyped from the jump. And the damage isn't just on the draft board. Tanking teams lose culture, fan trust, and functional rosters. They average net ratings near -9, field lineups full of unproven players, and often ditch anyone with real value to make sure they stay bad. It's a strategy that banks on lottery luck, but post-2019, reforms have flattened the odds. Now, the worst team only has a 14% shot at the number 1 pick. That's barely better than the 4th worst team. So even if a team tanks perfectly, there's still a big chance they end up drafting 5th. And that's if the basketball gods are in a good mood. Sure, it worked for the Pelicans when they got Zion, but even that's shaky. He's missed more games than he's played. His talent is clear, but the outcome still hangs in limbo. Most teams aren't that lucky. They sacrifice seasons, trade away their core, and draft someone like Okafor or Parker. 5 years later, they're still stuck in the lottery, wondering where it all went wrong. Tanking for hope is one thing. Tanking for nothing, that's the paradox. Homecourt Paradox. Home teams are supposed to have the edge. The crowd, the routine, the lack of jet lag, it's all tailored for success. But somehow, a few teams flip the script entirely. They actually play better on the road. That's the paradox. In a league where home teams win over half the time, some squads can't seem to get it together unless they're being booed by strangers. Take the 2025 Nets. At home, they were a mess. Only 7 wins in 24 games. Their net rating, -5.1. But once they hit the road, suddenly they looked functional. 13 wins in 25 games, with a positive net rating of +2.3. Their offensive rating away from home was 5.5 points higher, and they shot better, passed better, and even defended better. That's not normal. Teams are supposed to thrive in their own arenas, not trip over their shoelaces. The 2024 Mavericks were another head-scratcher. They had the same record at home and on the road, 25 wins each. But on the road, they were just better. Their offense clicked with a higher efficiency. Shooting improved by over 1% in effective field goal percentage, and their pace was faster. Luka, somehow, looked even more like a superstar when the crowd was against him. And Kyrie Irving, he was more accurate on the road than he was in Dallas. In the playoffs, they even took down opponents in Oklahoma City and Minnesota while holding their own at home. This wasn't a fluke, it was a pattern. And the 2021 Heat, similar story. Their road point differential was better than at home. They scored more efficiently, shot better, and held teams to fewer points per 100 possessions. Even their rebounding was stronger on the road. Jimmy Butler's numbers went up when he was away from South Beach, and the team as a whole had a higher net rating in enemy territory. So what gives? One factor is shooting variance. Teams like the Nets and Mavericks actually shot better from 3 on the road. That's not supposed to happen, but the data shows it clearly. Some players just seem to focus more when the crowd is hostile. Maybe there's less pressure to perform, fewer distractions, or maybe the road just forces sharper execution. Psychologically, being on the road can unite a team. It's them against the world, and sometimes that works better than the home crowd energy cliche. Luka, for example, averaged more clutch points per game on the road than at home in 2024. There's also the modern travel factor. Teams don't exactly rough it anymore. They've got biometric tracking, private flights, and optimized recovery protocols. Road fatigue is less of a thing now than it was even 10 years ago. Referee bias also fading. Home teams used to benefit from more calls, but in 2025, foul shots are nearly identical between home and road teams. The numbers don't lie. Officiating is more neutral now. Add to that the fact that opponents sometimes play down when they're at your place. The Heat saw opponents slow down in Miami, letting them control tempo better on the road. Meanwhile, teams like the Mavericks moved the ball more and turned it over less when traveling. All the usual assumptions about home court advantage are being challenged, and while most of the league still wins more at home, teams like the 2025 Nets, 2024 Mavericks, and 2021 Heat are living proof that the road isn't so rough after all. Sometimes, the silence of a disappointed away crowd is all the motivation a team needs. Load management paradox. The whole idea behind load management sounds logical. Give players some nights off, keep their bodies fresh, and get peak performance when it really matters. But here's the twist. The data from the last 5 seasons says that plans got holes in it big enough to drive a team bust through. When stars sit out too often, they don't come back sharper. They come back shakier. Rhythm gets busted, chemistry gets weird, and efficiency takes a nosedive. Take Kawhi Leonard's 2021 season. He missed around 20 games, most on back-to-backs. The goal was to protect his knees, but when he played, the consistency wasn't there. His effective field goal percentage bounced all over the place, swinging 12% from game to game. One night, he's lighting it up. Next game, he's bricking shots like he's in a charity event. And it wasn't just his shot. His clutch shooting dropped below league average, and his team's offense was actually worse with him on the court after rest. That's a problem when you're supposed to be the guy. Then there's Anthony Davis. In 2024, he played a lot more games, but even with that, the defense and scoring were all over the place. His point standard deviation was 8.1, way above LeBron's 6.7, and his effective field goal percentage would swing almost 14% depending on the night. It's like he'd take a game off, come back, and forget how to shoot for 3 quarters. The Lakers' offense dropped nearly 3 points in games after he rested. Chemistry just wasn't clicking. Joel Embiid's 2025 run tells the same story. He sat out 15 games managing his knee, and while his scoring was sky high, his shooting and efficiency took a beating. The points variance, over 9. The effective field goal variance, 14.6%. And when things got tight, his clutch shooting dipped way under league average. He was second in the league in scoring, but that scoring came with more cold nights than usual. Add in a noticeable drop in assist rates and an increase in defensive slip-ups, and the pattern is obvious. And it's not just these 3. League-wide, guys who rest more than 15 games have 12% higher points variability than those playing over 70. They also have a lower clutch shooting percentage and a lower net rating in tight games. The stats don't lie. This is where the paradox really kicks in. The rest is supposed to help, but for a lot of these players, it's doing the opposite. Rest breaks rhythm. You can't shoot the lights out if you haven't had reps. Rest breaks chemistry. If your teammates have to keep adjusting to your in and out status, the flow's gone. Rest affects conditioning. The numbers show a 5% spike in 4th quarter defensive rating after rest. That's tired legs in crunch time. And the worst part, teams keep doing it like it's the magic fix. But the NBA's own 10-year study said load management hasn't reduced injury risk, players sitting out and still tweaking ankles or knees when they come back. So now there's a bunch of players with high usage rates, big scoring nights, and stats that swing like a yo-yo. The league tried fixing this with the 65-game rule. It worked a little, fewer missed games, but the performance inconsistencies haven't gone anywhere. The paradox lives on. Big market paradox. The league loves its big cities, and it shows. The big market paradox plays out every season. Players in places like New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco get all the shine, while stars in cities like Oklahoma City or Milwaukee quietly dominate the stat sheets and get barely a fraction of the hype. It's not about talent, it's about zip codes and Nielsen rankings. Let's start with national TV game. The Lakers had 39 games aired on major networks this season. The Warriors, 36. Meanwhile, the Grizzlies showed up 10 times, and the Thunder got a grand total of 12. If you're Shea putting up over 30 a night with top 5 efficiency, you're barely getting airtime compared to someone like Jalen Brunson. That exposure gap matters. On social media, the numbers lean just as hard. LeBron James racked up over 12 million mentions. Anthony Davis got nearly 7 million. Giannis, despite being a former MVP and champion, didn't even crack half of that. Shea and Ja Morant hovered under 3 million each. That kind of exposure fuels endorsement, and that's where the dollar gap shows up. LeBron pulled in 80 million from endorsements alone. Curry made 52. Giannis, just 24. Kevin Durant brought in more than Giannis while playing in a mid-sized market, and Damian Lillard's even lower at 18. Brunson, just by moving to New York, scored 10 million a year in new deals. Shea, even while finishing second in MVP voting, earns less than half that with Converse. That's not a coincidence. By the way, I love Jalen Brunson. I'm just giving the examples. The bias creeps into award voting too. All-star votes were heavily tilted toward big market name. LeBron pulled over 5 million. Curry had almost as much. Meanwhile, Jokic, with 3 MVPs, got under 3 million. Shea barely crossed 2 million. MVP voting showed more of the same. Brunson finished 5th with worse efficiency and lower win shares than both Jokic and Shea, but he plays in Madison Square Garden, so voters noticed. I mean, Edwards in Minnesota had numbers nearly identical to Tatum in Boston, but Tatum gets double the mentions and double the national TV slots. You don't have to guess why. The economics back it all up. The Lakers made $465 million in revenue. The Knicks, $452. The Bucks, just $305. Grizzlies, $260. Local TV deals follow the same curve. Time Warner paid the Lakers $149 million for broadcast rights. The Grizzlies, a generous $9 million. That cash difference makes it easy for big teams to stack stars, absorb luxury tax penalties, and keep the media spotlight locked in place. Even all NBA honors reflect this trend. Over the last decade, players from big markets made 52 All-NBA teams. Small market players got 28, almost double. And jersey sales, only 2 players cracked the top 5 from smaller markets. Giannis and Wembanyama. Everyone else came from cities where the lights never dim. The paradox is built into the league's DNA. TV slots, endorsements, votes, and revenue all skew toward the same cities. Guys like Shea, Giannis, and Edwards keep doing more with less, but the spotlight keeps drifting back to the coast. Trade demand paradox. It sounds like players should hold all the cards when they're dropping 25 a night and asking to be traded, right? Turns out not exactly. The trade demand paradox shows that when a player publicly asks out, their trade value often nosedives. Teams lose leverage, the clock starts ticking, and returns drop fast, regardless of how good the player actually is. Just look at Jimmy Butler this season. He asked out of Miami with averages of nearly 19 points and solid all-around numbers. The Heat should have pulled in a big return. Instead, they got Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson, and 1 protected first-round pick. Wiggins had a player efficiency rating below 15. Anderson was barely cracking 10. Butler's value tanked the moment the demand became public. Teams knew Miami had to move him, and they offered scraps. Kyrie's move to the Mavericks in 2023 followed the same script. He was putting up over 27 points per game with elite efficiency. What did Brooklyn get? Dinwiddie, Finney Smith, and 1 unprotected pick. Kyrie's player efficiency rating was over 23. Dinwiddie's was 16. That's not a trade. That's a panic dump. The Nets lost control the second Kyrie's name hit headline. This isn't new. Anthony Davis did it in 2019. He was a top 5 player with years left on his deal. The return? Ingram, Ball, Hart, and a few picks. None of those guys were all-stars at the time. New Orleans took a package built on potential instead of production because Davis's demand scared off half the league. The Pelicans' option shrank and the price tag dropped. James Harden's circus in 2021 was the same story. He came into camp out of shape, said he wanted out, and boom, Houston had to settle for Victor Oladipo and a bag of picks. Oladipo had injury concerns, and the rest of the deal was just salary filler and long-term hope. Harden's player efficiency rating was nearly 25. The return didn't even come close to matching it. Even Kevin Durant, who's been one of the most consistent superstars in the league, couldn't get moved right after his trade demand in 2022. Teams offered underwhelming packages, fearing he'd just ask out again. Brooklyn had no choice but to hold on to him. The value was never the same again. It happened with Damian Lillard too. He asked out of Portland, named his preferred destination, and half the league backed off. The Blazers got Drew Holiday, Ayton, and one real pick. That's it for a guy scoring over 32 a game. Lillard's trade value got wrecked by his very public Miami preference. Fast forward to this year, Fox wanted out, and Sacramento took Zach LaVine, some prospects, and distant picks in 27 and 31. LaVine's numbers were fine, but injuries and cap hit made him a downgrade. Fox's value over replacement was nearly 3. The Kings got maybe 70 cents on the dollar. Brandon Ingram, same deal. New Orleans swapped him for Bruce Brown and one first rounder. That's what a former All-Star gets when he makes things public. Cap space issues don't help. Most contenders can't take on a giant contract, so offers are limited to teams with space, or those willing to scramble. Picks get protected, players are mid-tier, and timelines don't match. The return value drops 20 to 30% just from the optics. Media stories make it worse. Fans turn, jerseys stop selling. All NBA votes shrink. Harden saw his vote count drop by over 80% after his demand. Butler's Heat jersey sales dropped 18%. Teams don't just lose a player, they lose momentum, leverage, and perception. And that's what turns elite stats into bargain bin returns. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.